Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April meeting of Central Park United Neighbors. CPUN is a registered neighborhood organization for the Central Park community in Denver and Aurora. We are here to facilitate dialogue and create awareness around opportunities to engage on topics of importance to this community. We help people to find their way into a process so that resident questions, concerns, and ideas for a better community can be addressed in a constructive and inclusive way. We promote public service, civic discourse, and collective efficacy. At monthly meetings and throughout the work of our 6 working committees, CPUN facilitates the discussion of key issues with neighbors, engages in proactive problem avoidance, and amicable problem solving. CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all members of our community. We are an all-volunteer board of your neighbors and a registered 501c3. Next slide, please, Mark. The agenda for the evening, as always, we'll start with the outreach meeting, the outreach hour. That'll open up with committee updates from our 6 committees. Just a kid. Community partner updates, and then we'll have a special presentation from Dr. Jamie Wright, who's the Executive Director of Metro Denver Homeless Initiative, followed by a 5-minute public comment period. We'll then move on to our board hour, where we'll get full committee reports. The agenda tonight is relatively light. We'll be mainly focusing on preparing for our annual forum, which will be held on Tuesday, May 17th from 6:30 to 8:30. We are going to be conducting that meeting in a hybrid format. So you are welcome to attend in person at the Cube, or if more convenient or more comfortable, over Zoom as well, just like we're doing here. So looking forward to trying that out. We'll then follow up with some additional discussion about our open board seat outreach. And if we have time, talk a little bit about a proposal from our DEI committee. And then we'll wrap things up with a treasurer's report. Next slide, please. I mentioned the community forum, the annual community forum, and some of the board business that's conducted there is voting on the slate of residents who will serve on this board for a 2-year term. We cycle alternating, because it's a 2-year term, board members are up every other year. This is the slate that we'll be presenting to the community for election to that 2-year term. Amanda Alshouse, who is a past president, Jeffrey Barron, our current vice president, Carol Hunter, Mandel Rousseau, Liz Stolniker, and Sandra Tabode. So thank you to all of these residents, all of whom are current board members who have agreed to commit to another 2-year term. We have a 30-day notice period where we have to present this slate to the community so that people can educate themselves about our slate and our organization. We met that requirement by publishing social media and email communications last Friday, but I thought it would just be good to promote that here as well. So you can learn more about these board members and our entire board on centralparkunitedneighbors.com. And with that, we'll go to committee updates. In the outreach hour, these updates are intended to focus on opportunities for residents to engage projects that any of the committees might have in the works versus sort of more detailed committee reports, which take place during the board hour. Do any of our committees have a project that they would like to share or an opportunity to participate that they'd like to share? We'll start with, the Sustainability Committee.
Yeah, I know we have something coming up this Saturday. Brad, can you tell us a little bit more about it? Because you're more familiar with it than I am. So
that's true. So hi, everyone. The Sustainability Committee in March had a really great meeting with a lot of residents and neighbors around electrifying your home. Essentially, maybe replacing your gas furnace with a heat pump, things like that. And as a follow-up, we actually heard a ton of interest from people that attended and others that heard about it like what's the next step? How do we, maybe get together, try to figure out how we can do this all ourselves? So one of our neighbors who owns a business that helps people put on solar and electrify their homes, he's actually gotten together a couple of different community and nonprofit and business leaders to offer a seminar at the Sam Gary Library this Saturday from 10 to 12 p.m. Maybe we'll try to push this out afterwards on our social media channels. But essentially, if you want to kind of learn more about what is a heat pump, what is it, what does it entail, what does it cost, things like that, it's a great opportunity to figure out how to green and electrify your home. So really encourage you. It's at the Sam Gary Library this Saturday from 10 to 12 p.m., 10 a.m. to 12.
Fantastic. That's great, Brad. Safe streets, anything this month?
Yes, we did not have an April meeting, but we are going to have, in fact, we're in the works right now, and we're going to have a little discussion tomorrow about our May meeting. And we had kind of an ad hoc meeting on the 1st of April with some residents at Stanley Marketplace who are extremely concerned about speeding. And this group of people were really triggered by a video that a resident at 26th and Fulton had taken over several days of the speeding and the running of stop signs in the neighborhood. And it was really quite incredible to watch. So we are going to be talking about that tomorrow, and we're going to figure out how we can collaborate together and get some things done in communicating with the city about our concerns. Brad, you want to say something about the celebration in May?
Oh yeah. So I know there was a little snafu in putting down the bike lane, striping for the new protected bike lane on Central Park Boulevard. But I was just on a call today with Dottie, and they are feeling confident that May 21st is going to be the new bike lane celebration day. So really excited about that. As a refresher for folks that weren't aware of it already, we're going to do a group ride starting at Bill Roberts and then going up the bike lane north on Central Park Boulevard and then ending on the Greenway. And there's going to be, sort of bike education for kids, some swag giveaways, and it's going to be a great celebration. I heard there may be a rumor that I think they're trying to get Mayor Hancock to show up as well. So we'll see. But anyway, it should be a really fun event, if only just to ride your bike up and down the protected bike lane. So hopefully we'll have more info next month. But as far as I know, we're planning on May 21st.
Did you say what time, or is it time not established yet?
I'd have to look it up, but I think it's going to be 10 to 1.
Okay.
So mid-morning. Hopefully it won't be too hot, but should be a good time.
Great. Looking forward to that, Brett. Thanks. Health and safety.
Yeah, so the chief of the Denver Fire Department, Desmond Fulton, will be presenting tomorrow during the MCA Delegate Forum on a couple of issues related to fire mitigation. We've had 3 different wildland type fires here in the neighborhood in the last, actually in the month of April. So he is joining the MCA to speak with the delegates about fire mitigation and some other related fire safety things. The entire community is invited to that meeting, as they are to every MCA delegate meeting. And then we will have additional conversation about that in our Health and Safety Committee meeting next Thursday.
Thanks, Jack. Education.
I think that Amanda, if she's going to be with us, I hope she'll be with us in the second hour, can say more about our most recent meeting. But I just briefly wanted to say that Director Michelle Quattlebaum from our District 4 DPS director was with us, and that our entire meeting was taken up with questions and answers, and 3 very specific questions. And Amanda will have more to say about that later. But I would like to invite the community to come to our next meeting on May 10th, because I would like to follow up on this. The meeting was recorded. We will get that on the website so that people can watch it. I highly recommend that. And I'd like this meeting to be sort of a where do we go from here based on some of the things that Director Quattlebaum shared with us. Do you have anything else to say just briefly about that, Amanda?
So I think that in following up with Director Quattlebaum, we'll need to just ask some clarification questions about, well, I think that she directed us when we met with her to think more about what the superintendent is going to be charged with and what it is that she'll be doing. And so we'll just need to be aware of how to navigate that. And I don't know that we know that yet.
Right. Oh, and very briefly to community folks who are with us right now, she is forming an advisory committee that is supposed to be active beginning in the new school year. So we need to share more information about exactly how to be part of that if you wish to do so.
Okay, thank you. And finally, the DEI committee.
Hi, this is Liz. I think unless I'm mistaken, I think Mandel and Shalise, or the co-chairs for it, were not able to join tonight's meeting. I think we'll have to send an update in one of the community update emails. We had a good meeting last month with some kind of newcomer folks or folks who hadn't joined the DEI meeting before to talk about some of the findings from the DEI Community Survey results that we went over, and then just kind of talked about steps moving forward. But I don't want to step on Mandel and Shalise's toes since they're not here tonight. So we'll send an update from the committee by email.
Thanks, Liz, and thanks for mentioning that you had some new people join your meeting, which I'm glad to hear. And for anyone that's listening, all of our committees are open to residents. So you do not have to be a board member to sit on any one of these committees. If you're interested in the topic and you really want to focus your time in that specific area, we'd love to have you join us. And you can learn more about.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to reiterate. I mean, especially for the work that our committee is trying to do, the more the merrier. And it was a really good conversation with kind of a lot of different feedback. So it was really good. So we'll get out the information on our next meeting, which I think will not be until after or it'll be around the May meeting, because we don't have one in April. But thanks. Yeah, it was a very good discussion. So we'll send an update on that.
Thanks, Liz. Well, anyone that's listening can look up our 6 committees on our website, as well, including all of the standing meeting times, which tend to be monthly or every other month. And with that, we'll turn it over to community updates, and we'll start, as we always do, with Denver Police Department. Are you there, Lieutenant Hines?
Yeah, I sure am. Thanks for having us tonight. It's good to see everyone. Just to give an update on some of the things we're seeing here in the community. Sorry if my voice sounds raspy. I just had a sneezing fit right before I came on here, so like seasonal allergies popping up here or something. But just to give an update on some of the things we're seeing out here. Auto theft and street racing continue to be issues that we're a little bit plagued by in the community. We have been doing some pretty serious higher level enforcement operations against the auto theft issue. Without going into too much detail that would impair the investigation, we've identified a couple of organized auto theft rings that we're currently going after. A couple of those offenders were presented to the grand jury last week, and we've done some operations and have some planned that are going to hopefully take down some of the other players. But these are people who are probably responsible for quite a bit of the crime that's been happening in the neighborhood as far as auto theft is concerned. I've also been hearing a lot of complaints from residents about the street racing issue, and that continues to be a problem. I will say that Lieutenant Kevin Edling, who is one of my counterparts who works on the overnight shift in District 5, has recently returned from military leave, and he's kind of spearheading our efforts to combat street racing right now. So he's working with teams from around the city to have a coordinated approach to that. We've updated a lot of our trespass agreements with the warehouses and are continuing to try to make sure we keep that activity out of the area. Carol, as to your comment about speeding, I want to at least tell you that I was talking to Officer Pollard yesterday, and he's our traffic officer in District 5, and he was very happy to report that the new state-of-the-art LiDAR unit we got him came in, which he says will save us several minutes on each setup he tries to do because of the way this sets up faster. Got into a bunch of technical traffic stuff he was explaining to me, but he expects that he's going to be able to cover more areas in a given shift now, and hopefully more efficiently address some of these traffic concerns you guys are having out in the community. So we know it's an ongoing issue with speeding and concerns of that nature, but it is something we're working to address and try to get people to drive a little more safely, especially in the neighborhoods where we have kids running around all the time. As far as other things coming up, I have Officer Danae Baskell, or I'm sorry, Danae Ferenz now on the call with us tonight, and she was going to give an update on when we have some upcoming meetings that she can share with you. Danae, are you here?
I am. Good evening, everybody. Just some quick updates. We are going to have a neighborhood watch meeting this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. It's going to be virtual. I did send out an email probably about a week and a half ago regarding that. It is RSVP only, just because the last few months we've had the meetings, we've had extremely low participation rates. So if that's something you're interested in joining, please shoot me an email and I will send you the link to that meeting. We like to do those meetings on the opposite months of the commanders meeting. So this month is Neighborhood Watch. We'll go over just different updates in the community, just much like what Lieutenant Hines was saying now. We'll just talk about different tools and ways that you as community members can assist us with helping reduce current crime in the neighborhood, how we can work together and partner together and things like that. Our commanders meeting will be May 19th. It's always the odd month, third Thursday at 6 p.m. Information on that is still being determined. So I will send out information regarding the commanders meeting as we get closer to that date. But that is all the updates I have as of right now.
And
I'll leave my email in the chat.
Yeah, naturally, we're happy to help if anybody has any questions. I'll take any questions from anybody about things going on or concerns you might have.
Any questions? Quiet tonight.
Yeah, well, it's 81 out. I saw on the thermometer. I think that might have something to do with it.
We're all, getting reacclimated.
Right.
Well, thank you, Officer Hines and friends. I appreciate it. We'll move on to.
Thank you very much.
I'll just speak on behalf of Mercy Housing. Sarah Schaefer wasn't able to join tonight. She was sure to send along a picture where she circled in red all of the things in their closet that have come from the Amazon wish list program that we've been working on with the Bluff Lake facility, with the Bluff Lake apartments there. And she continues to be very grateful. They've got volunteer week at Mercy Housing the first week in May. And they've got a variety of different projects that you can potentially participate in. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll encourage you to email Sarah. And I'll just put it in the chat now. You can email her directly to find out what they're working on for the first week of May. And with that, we'll move on to Northeast Transportation Connections. I think I saw Eric Herbst join us.
Yes, I am here.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, so Northeast Transportation Connections, if you're not familiar with, we are a transportation nonprofit in Northeast Denver that covers the Central Park community. Our work mainly involves reducing congestion and improving air quality. We are starting to plan Bike to Work Day right now. So we're kind of gearing that up for that. That's coming in June. Similar to the home energy program that was talked about earlier, the Climate Office of Denver is also rolling out an e-bike and e-cargo bike incentive. This is for any Denver resident And I'll put some information in the chat, but it's basically any Denver resident, if you're looking to buy an e-bike, you can get a $400 instant rebate. So you can apply for that rebate before you go in to purchase your e-bike, and you would just kind of hand that rebate to the bike shop, and they would take that discount off of the bike. If you're wanting a cargo bike, they will add an additional $500 to that $400. So you can get a $900 discount for a cargo bike that's electric. There's also income qualified amounts that are up to $1,200. So it's really exciting. This launches this Friday, April 22nd. Again, I'll put some information in the chat about that, but we've been working with the Climate Office to try to help spread the word on that program. The website's really good. They have a list of, what e-bikes qualify, what bike shops you can take this to. They're trying to support all of our local bike shops in Denver that sell e-bikes. So it's not something you can take to like the big box stores like Walmart or Target. So you do have to go to a local bike shop, but those are all listed on the website. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions on that. But again, the website's really good with a bunch of information and steps on how to get that voucher. Besides that, we always do our monthly commuter challenge. I'll put this in the chat as well. So this month, there's a bunch of kind of bike themed prizes that can be won. And that's for logging trips through our My Way to Go platform. And that's also kind of a carpool network program where you can find carpoolers that have a similar commute as you, but you just log 8 trips for the month. That's 8 one-way trips, so 4 round trip trips that are non-drive alone, if that makes sense. So kind of biking, taking public transit, anything except driving alone gets you entered for some prizes, and we do that every month. I see that there's a question. Is that Brad?
Oh, hey, Eric. No, I just wanted to mention, thank you for that information. And I feel remiss for not mentioning it myself about the rebate, but the Sustainability Committee, we're actually going to plan sometime this summer with one of our local bike shops that qualifies for that rebate, Heart Family Cyclery. We're going to do sort of an e-bike demo event. So if you're sort of curious about e-bikes, we're planning on having Mackenzie at Heart Family Cyclery bring out a few models. I'll bring mine out. I think you all knew I was going to mention my own e-cargo bike, but just so people in the neighborhood, if you've never seen one, or maybe you've seen one from afar, you can actually go test them out. And then with this rebate, they're a little pricier. So it's nice to be able to test them out and combine that with a rebate, maybe take advantage of it this year.
Great.
Yeah,
Do you guys mind putting URLs in the chat where people can learn more about collecting a rebate, anything like that?
Yep, I can do that right now.
Cool, thanks.
I
didn't mean to cut you off, Eric.
No, you're good. Sorry, I just put too much information probably in the chat. Beyond that, a couple of surveys that I just wanted to let people aware of. RTD's FAIR study is going on right now. So they're kind of looking at the fares again. So they're asking people what they think about the current fare, how they can make it simpler, more affordable, and more equitable, and what changes they should make to the RTD fares. So there's a quick survey. If you have any input, feel free to go to that link. And then the other one is the Denver Moves Everyone 2050. They also have a survey related to transportation and funding. So you can go through that survey and kind of let the city know where they can improve the neighborhood as far as transportation is concerned. And they give you a little bit more info on how the funding kind of operates and how it trickles down to different projects. So again, I'll leave those in the chat. And that's basically it for me, I think.
Thanks, Eric. Any questions for him? Oh, Amanda this.
Yeah, during our meeting with Director Pottlebaum last week from the Board of Education, she mentioned that she's heard from families that are concerned with having their kids cross I-70. And her suggested solution was for the community to flood RTD with requests for increasing bus service. So are you saying that this survey and other routes are also helpful for people who are looking to increase bus service, perhaps for Northfield High School, and getting their kids to school there? And do you know of anything else along those lines in terms of increasing access to school for people south of I-70?
The survey I did put in the chat is specifically for the fare study. So it's really looking at the payment for RTD and really focusing on that arm of RTD. I think RTD, it's always difficult. We always push and encourage RTD to increase the frequency of buses in Northeast Denver. And there's always this like chicken or the egg, like they want more ridership to increase the frequency of a route. And we want the route to be more frequent to get more ridership. So I feel like we kind of go in circles on this, but we're hoping that like the fare study, kind of making the fares a little cheaper, that just making it kind of simpler, I think, is what their goal is, would be super helpful, and just getting rid of that barrier. A lot of times we talk to people, and one of the big barriers is just not knowing the exact payment or how to pay. I will mention to this group really quick that if you have like Lyft or Uber on your phone, those apps typically have RTD payments on there. So if you are looking to take RTD, you can easily use those profiles that you already have set up, that already have kind of your credit card information and payment information. So you can easily click on that to purchase an RTD pass for the day, or like a one-way pass, and then you just show that to the bus driver. So yeah, I hear what you're saying though, as far as increasing the service kind of going north of I-70. It's something we've continued to try to work on, and try to just increase kind of the education and knowledge on those routes so we get more ridership. So RTD will make those more frequent. But yeah, it's a tricky one for sure.
Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
Unless there are any other questions, we'll move on to the library. I see John. Hi, John.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, if you don't know me, my name is John Flanagan, and I'm a librarian at the Sam Gary Branch Library here in Central Park. And I do have a few announcements to make. It'll be pretty brief. We're kind of transitioning back into doing in-person programming, kind of slowly but surely. So we have a couple things coming up that are kind of fun. This Friday, actually, at 4 o'clock, we have an author visit. Let's see, Jamie Gehring. She's a local author, but she actually grew up next door to Ted Kaczynski, AKA the Unabomber. So she just recently published a book about that. It's pretty interesting. And so that's this Friday. That's in our community room. And then we also have something coming up in May in collaboration with Modus Theater. It's called Undocu Monologues. So it's various autobiographical stories from various undocumented writers who live locally, and that's May 14th. I'll put something in the chat about that. But so and I also wanted to mention that our central library has been under construction for a while and will continue to be, but the children's library portion of the library, the children's area, is their grand opening is again coming up real soon this Sunday, April 24th from 1 to 5. And there's also, it's Dia del Nino, so there'll be a kind of a bunch of activities for families going on too. But it looks like a really beautiful space that the rest of the library is still going to be under construction for a while. But if you feel like venturing downtown to check out a beautiful new space, and then that will be open their regular hours as well. But the grand opening is this weekend. And then a couple more quick things. Denver Public Library is doing a seed library this summer. Unfortunately, we are not one of the locations, but the Park Hill branch is one of them. So they have a bunch of different types of plant seeds that are available for people to come and look at and take stuff with them and plant gardens this spring. It's a pretty fun thing, and maybe next year will be one of the locations. They're kind of rolling it out at a few places this year. So, and then the last thing is probably the thing that would be the most interest to Central Park residents. We are just figuring out hiring or bringing on teen volunteers this summer. So we are going to bring on a bunch of teen volunteers. I believe it's 12 to 18 is the age. I'm going to put the link in the chat. The application just went up today. And we will be bringing on a lot of people to volunteer this summer. So I know we've had a lot of questions from people, and we usually get quite a few teens from the neighborhood volunteering. We ask that they come either May 24th or May 26th are able to come to a orientation after school. But I will send a link to that. So please spread the word if you know any teens that are looking for volunteer opportunities. It will be mainly helping out with our Summer of Adventure program, signing kids up for that program, but there'll be lots of other things too. We're going to need a lot of help this summer. We're going to be busy. So I'll throw those, I'll throw a couple links in the chat here when I'm done speaking. But that's all I've got, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Thanks, John. I know you said it would be a short update, but it sounds like you got plenty going on to me. the children's wing of the new library. I'm looking forward to
it's exciting, and we're gearing up. We're doing more and more in-person programming, kind of as we hopefully are moving into things a little bit more similar to how things used to go. So we're excited about that. But I think somebody does have a question.
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, from the sustainability committee, I actually realized that I have had a question that I've been meaning to ask for a while. I feel like at either one of the libraries or this one, there was some discussion about doing a tool library. And one of the things that I thought would be really handy from a sustainability standpoint would be if you guys had one of those like infrared cameras that people could get to like check out their house to see where they have drafts and stuff, to be able to, look at doing, some retrofits or more insulation or fixing their doorways or windows or something along those lines to save some money.
That's a great suggestion. We do check out some things. We check out the energy meters that you can plug appliances into, and it'll tell you how much how much energy it's using each day or hour or month. And we got some other things like that, but that's a great idea. I will pass that on to our they call them library of things, but yeah, I will pass it on. That's actually a great suggestion, Mark. Thank you.
And I had a related one just now, seeing Amanda's face sitting in front of me at the same time. We had talked at one point about indoor air quality monitors, and that might be really helpful for people who live near gas stations to see if their indoor air quality is good.
And we do have those. I'll put a link. I'll put a link that has a list of all the things that we do check out. Yeah, we have awesome. A number of things, but we're always looking for suggestions. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go next to the MCA. I see Diane's joined us.
Hello.
Hello.
So we are gigging back up for what we hope is a full summer. And we've got right now the pool naming contest online on our website. And if you haven't, vote for what name you like the best. And we're just trying to narrow it down to the best name possible for the final 7th pool in the northern part of the community. Just kind of a list of things that we've got going on. We've got in May on the 13th and 14th, the garage sale. I will put in the chat the link for that to get signed up for it. It is our annual community-wide garage sale. It'll be Saturday and Sunday. As Jack mentioned, we have the delegate forum tomorrow. I did put the link on that if you are interested in connecting with that tomorrow, especially since we have the fire chief speaking. And we are looking to hire 165 summer staff, and we've updated our 15-year-old policy to if you have a 15-year-old, they could be hired to assist after the 4th of July. So that's been a little bit of a tweak from what I talked about last month. So if you have a 15-year-old, still have them apply, and we'll just make sure that they are up to speed and trained and ready to go after the 4th of July.
Sorry, did
And
you say
then
15 or 14 and 15?
15.
Okay, darn, I got a 14-year-old. She's gonna have to wait here.
Almost next summer, but still could be, the 14-year-old can still be a junior lifeguard. So we do have that program for 14-year-olds. And then the final thing, I just want to touch base, and Jack, if you want to provide any more information, we did have a homeless camp cleanup in conjunction with the city and Sand Creek Regional Greenway at Sand Creek in Quebec. And it was a pretty major process, and they went in and did a pretty major sweep and cleanup of that area. So we had a lot of people contacting us about that information, and just wanted to update everybody on who was involved in that. And then just the final thing is, if you have not yet got your membership updated for the pools, do so now so that you are ready to go. Once we open up the pools, they will be all open, regular schedule, next beginning the Saturday of Memorial Weekend at noon. And we will have we will have lessons, we will have private lessons, group lessons for everyone. With the exception of the 0 to 4-year-olds, we will not have group lessons, but we will have private lessons for them. So that's kind of our update at this point in time. Let me know if you have any questions.
Anything for Diane?
Thanks.
Thank you, Diane. We'll wrap up this portion of the hour with Councilman Herndon's office. We're always thrilled to have Amanda with us, of course, but I see Councilman Herndon himself has joined as well. Happy to have you join us as well, Councilman Herndon.
Hey, Jeff, thank you. Thank you all for having me. I apologize, I got on late, so I wasn't sure if this was brought up, but I wanted to let folks know that City Council District 8 will be partnering with Central Park United Neighbors to do a community blood drive Friday, May the 6th. And to give you all some little background, if you weren't aware, for the first time, the Red Cross declared a national blood shortage. It's sad because the overwhelming majority of people are eligible to donate, but with COVID, folks have chosen not to, and there are hospitals who at times don't have the blood that they need. And that's the main reason that we want to do this. But we also want to draw attention to some discriminatory practices when it comes to blood donation. And if you're not aware, gay and bisexual men have to defer for 3 months from sexual relations if they want to give blood. Now, we should applaud the FDA because that used to be 12 months and they brought it down to 3, but that is one, discriminatory, not evidence-based, and stigmatizes the LGBTQ community. And so we want to bring attention to this. And as we were doing our research and planning for this blood drive, Senator Bennett, along with just about 20 other senators, actually wrote a letter to the Health and Human Service Secretary, HHS Secretary, to encourage them to eliminate and update their policies to be more scientific and data driven. So we've been in contact with Senator Bennett's office. We actually invited Senator Bennett to come to the blood drive that Friday. Sadly, he won't be in town, but we want to bring attention to this. We'll be doing a city council proclamation that Monday, encouraging the FDA as well to update their policies based off of evidence, not based off of inaccurate and antiquated stereotypes. But we want to encourage as many people as possible to participate. It's going to be Friday, May 6th, 8:30 to 12:15. We can have up to 32 people donate. We do have the link. I'm not sure. I've been looking at my camera, but I hope that Amanda could share the link for individuals to sign up. And I appreciate CPUN's partnership in trying to drive people to give blood as well as bring attention to this policy that needs to change.
Thanks, Councilman, and we appreciate your collaboration on this issue, both in organizing the blood drive and drawing attention to the discriminatory practices that you called out. It was important to CPUN that if we were to participate in this, that we live up to our mission of being a welcome and inclusive environment for all and fostering that belief. And so by hopefully raising more awareness around this issue, we can help advance that effort and that cause. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And if I did not say that, the location's at the Cube. So thank you, Diane Dieter and the Cube for being a great host to allow us to do the blood drive there. So that will be the location of the Cube in Northfield.
I mentioned the Cube for the CPUN annual forum as well. That is thank you, or thanks to Diane as well. So Diane, thank you for all you're doing to help our community. Are there any other updates from Councilman Herndon or Amanda?
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me as always. I did go ahead and pop the link for the blood drive sign up into the chat. So you should have that. Feel free to share that. Just sort of one quick reminder from me, and if you could help me spread the word with your friends and neighbors in the community. One of my responsibilities in my role is to sort of help manage the constituent contacts that come into our office. And one of the things that I have been seeing recently, also as someone who is your neighbor, I live in Central Park as well, is a lot of frustration on social media and hearing about it from some other folks that people are feeling like they're really annoyed, they're not getting a response from our office, but they're tagging the councilman's personal Facebook page. And so we absolutely welcome engagement with our office. My ask and my reminder is that it needs to come in through official channels. There are some really good reasons, including very real legal ones, that require us to keep official city business on official city communication channels. So it gets really messy and complicated and not ideal when we have folks who want to conduct city business on personal communication channels. So we're absolutely willing to respond to anybody who reaches out to our office, call, email us, whatever you need. We are happy to talk to anyone, but we just can't do it through personal social media channels. So I'm happy to answer any questions or get any clarification about that. But my ask would be that you could help us spread the word, because we certainly do want to be communicating well with people, but we have a responsibility and an obligation to do it through the proper channels.
Thanks, Amanda. And I'll just underscore that whether it's Councilman Herndon's office or any other city official or agency, if you're unclear about what the appropriate channels are, you can always contact our organization as well, and we're more than happy to point you in the right direction. Any other questions for Councilman Herndon or his office, or for Amanda?
Hey Jeff, this is Shalise. How are you this evening?
Oh, good. How are you, Shalise? Are you feeling okay?
I'm all right.
Yeah.
Quick question, Amanda. Is there any way that you could put the appropriate contact information in the chat? And also, is there any way that you can possibly post this online? I noticed that I don't know if it's Chris Herndon or maybe a staff member that does this, but you post quite a lot on Facebook and different various groups. Could you post the information there also?
That may be up to the individual groups, but I'm happy to look into that. And I'm absolutely happy to post the contact information. Are you looking for the councilman's contact information directly, email, mainline for the phone office? Do you want mine? What would be most helpful for you?
Well, you stated that people are tagging his personal Facebook and that they should be using the proper city channels. So whatever channel or whatever contact information you think that people need to use, that's what I would like for you to contact. So if you want us to call 311, the information for 311, if you want us to call your office directly, if you want us to email you, if you want us to email Councilman Herndon.
Any of those work. So I'm happy to post that, but any of those work, just not on the personal email or personal Facebook side.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks to all of our community partners for joining us tonight and every month. Appreciate all that you're doing in our community as well. We'll move on next to our special guest. I'm really excited to have Dr. Jamie Wright with us. Dr. Wright is the Executive Director of the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. The continuum of care in the Metro Denver region, tasked with leading the work to coordinate and collaborate on homelessness in the 7-county region. And part of the MDHI's work is the annual State of Homelessness report outlining the current data related to homelessness. And that's going to be the topic of Dr. Wright's presentation this evening. So Dr. Wright, thank you for joining us. We're very happy to have you, and we're looking forward to learning from you here tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and I'm definitely going to get in on the pool naming competition and get my vote in.
There you go.
And Jeff, do you mind if I steal the screen from you? There we go. Can you all see that? Perfect.
Yep, we can see that.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm Dr. Jamie Wright. I am the Executive Director of the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. And what in the world does that mean? I'm going to talk about that for a second. So MDHI, our mission is leading and advancing collaboration to end homelessness in the region, as Jeff shared. So really think of us as a backbone organization for all of those organizations doing the work on the ground. We kind of act as a collaborating agency as well as an intermediary between the state and the ground level, as well as the feds and kind of, again, the people on the ground doing the work. Our region is a 7-county Metro Denver region listed on your screen. Some of the things you've heard of, maybe, that we do is we coordinate the annual point in time, which is the annual count of people experiencing homelessness, usually done during the last 10 days in January. We administer something called the Homeless Management Information System. I'm going to talk a lot about that. It does not sound that exciting. I promise it is, and I will show you why in a bit. We also oversee what's called coordinated entry, which is how our region prioritizes and matches people to housing. We lead the funding process from HUD and bring a little over $30 million into the region. And then we work to create coordination and maximize resources, as well as provide data and reporting such as the State of Homelessness Report, like Jeff mentioned. I'm going to go through that a little bit today. It is about 65 pages. I am not going to cover all 65 of those pages with you this evening. I'm going to give you a brief overview and encourage you to visit our website, and I will drop the link in later to show you where the report is. So let's talk about this for a second. To my knowledge, we're the only continuum of care in the country that does a report like this. It is modeled after a similar report that is published by Congress each year. And so basically the purpose of the report is really to educate our 7-county Metro Denver constituents on the public data sources available, identify key causes of homelessness, and then the action steps we can take. It also really helps elevate. You'll see throughout the report, there's a lot of voices of lived experience, there's quotes, there's stories, things like that. And the other thing is really it speaks to stereotypes and homelessness, as well as we cannot talk about homelessness in this country without talking about racial inequity. So I want to talk a little bit about what the report is and what the report isn't. So it is a crosswalk of several different data. One of the things about homelessness, as you can imagine, is it's incredibly complicated to try to determine the actual number of people experiencing homelessness for multiple reasons. One of the biggest ones being is that there are actual different definitions across federal agencies, which complicates things right at its root. This actual report crosswalks what is called the Homeless Management Information System. If you work in healthcare, it's kind of like electronic healthcare records. If you work in school districts, it's like a student information system. It's a system that is required by HUD for anyone receiving federal funding to be able to kind of track people and provide them the resources needed when they're experiencing homelessness to move them from instability to stability. So you get a lot of great data from that system. Our coordinated entry system, like I said, that's how we match people to housing. Our point in time data, which is the 1-night count. And then education data, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't think about, is the number of students in our school districts in the region and across the country that experience homelessness every year. It's also a really great way to understand homelessness in the region overall. And what I want to say as well, it is absolutely impossible to determine exactly to the person right now who's experiencing homelessness. Each of the data that I'm going to show to you really helps us understand this issue more holistically. What the report isn't, it definitely isn't exhaustive. There's Medicaid data out there. There are several other systems as well. And it definitely isn't perfect. It is a work in progress as we try to get a better handle on who's experiencing homelessness. So let's talk, this is kind of the page that I reference quite a bit just because it has, I think, the best overall data. All right, so here we go. In the Homeless Management Information System, between July 1st of 2020, so right a couple months into COVID, to June 30, 2021, we had over 32,000 people experience homelessness. Those are unique individuals in our region who experienced homelessness. In contrast to that, the number that everyone's always paid attention to because we didn't have real-time data forever is the point in time. So on a single night, now you can imagine in January of 2021, why we didn't go out and do an unsheltered count. We only did a shelter count. We had 5,530 people in a single night in January 2021. The year before in 2020, which was the last time we did a safe point in time count, there were 6,104 people. And then this last number is the one that I think is really startling to most people, is that in the school year 1920, there were almost 12,000 students that met the McKinney-Vento homeless education definition of homelessness in our school districts across the 7 counties. So again, these are all kind of together, they tell us a much bigger picture. So some new things for this year, because this is only the 2nd annual report. Some things people are wondering, how did COVID affect homelessness? Great question. So one of the things we saw is a 40% increase year over year in the number of people experiencing homelessness. We also saw nearly a doubling of the number of people who are experiencing homelessness for the first time. And I think that's where we really saw the numbers increase, was for the first time, households that were kind of on the verge, maybe living paycheck to paycheck, actually fell into homelessness. And then the other thing that we were able to kind of pull this year is some unsheltered data, or for people that were staying outdoors. And what we saw over the course of a year is people's last interaction with someone who used our information system. You can see there's almost 11,000 individuals, over 1,000 families, and 954 young people that were staying outdoors. All right. I want to also share with you, like I said earlier, we just absolutely can't have a conversation about homelessness without talking about race. So the orange count is the percent of the population of people experiencing homelessness by race in the homeless management information system. So you can see like American Indian, Alaska Native, they're very much overrepresented. The purple is the point in time count. The light blue is the census, or like the general population or the housed population count. So if you look at like American Indian, Alaska Native, Black or African American, Native, Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander, they are all grossly overrepresented. And you will see that people that identify as white are vastly underrepresented in the homeless population. Okay, so a couple of things I think it's important to kind of talk through. Homelessness at its root is an economic issue. It is the combination and the kind of the crux of many systems that have come together to create the modern homelessness crisis. In Denver, a report just came out, I think it was yesterday or the day before. We are now the 5th least affordable city in the entire United States. If you look at our housing and wage information, doesn't mean we're the 5th most expensive. It means we're based on our median wage and our median housing prices, we are the 5th least affordable. And if you look at just a 2-bedroom housing wage in Colorado is over $57,000 a year. And if you look at that just in our region, it climbs to over $64,000 a year. So you have to be making that much to not be rent or housing burdened in our region for a 2-bedroom, which I used to be a teacher. I can tell you right now, I did not make that much as a teacher. That's our nurses, that's a lot of our public servants who can't afford to live in our region. Okay, so a couple of key takeaways. One of the consistent things, and probably the only consistent thing that we see in homelessness data, is that racial inequity absolutely exists across all the data. There are significant increases from COVID-19. Again, we're continuing to kind of feel the impact of that. We are beginning, I think this is good news, to get some real-time data to be able to understand this issue each and every day versus having to wait for a one-time count each year. And we really need to have more affordable housing in our region, as well as access to services and supports if we want to be able to address this issue meaningfully. Okay, so what do we do, right? That is a great question, and we do have a plan as a region. So I wanted to just kind of talk briefly about this because we are the first metro region in the entire country to be addressing homelessness this way. And though we haven't been doing it long, we're starting to see some really significant results, and we'll talk about that. We are partnering with a national nonprofit called Community Solutions to work on something called Built for Zero. It's a very data-driven approach to creating meaningful reductions in homelessness. And what they've been able to do is actually solve homelessness in other parts of the country. That does not mean, when we say we're ending homelessness, it does not mean that no one will ever experience homelessness. It means that it's going to be rare, brief, and non-recurring. And we want to get to a point where we can house more people in a month than there are experiencing homelessness in a month. And there are certain smaller cities across the US that have been able to do that for certain subpopulations. So here's kind of some impact data from Form Built for Zero and this initiative. And what we've been able to do, and I think this is what's unique about Metro Denver, is we have stood up 9 subregions. And in those subregions, each of those regions is working on the issues of their region. So before, what we used to try to do was work across the 7 counties, which, as you probably know, what works in downtown Denver probably doesn't work in Douglas County. What works in Boulder may not work in Broomfield even. So we've broken the region down and are starting to create these local homeless coordination teams to work on the issues. But by doing this framework and working together, what we're doing is actually driving reductions at the regional level. Do not try to read the screen unless you brought a magnifying glass. This is on the website, I can drop that link in as well. What we are doing is working on this scorecard, and this is kind of step 1, and working to get to a place where we know in real time who's experiencing homelessness. And what we've been able to do is get almost to that point with veterans across the region. And so you can see in blue are the hey, this is where we're doing well. The red is in your region. Like if you look at Denver's in there, Aurora's in there, you can see the areas where the region, that part of the region, needs to be kind of stepping up some of their different portions of the homelessness response. So what have we done? I just told you how much homelessness has increased for people newly experiencing homelessness. It's gone up outdoors, it's gone up in shelters. We have started in the last year to use this framework to focus on veterans. And in the midst of a global pandemic, when we've seen some of the worst times in our country's history, we've actually been able to decrease veteran homelessness by 15% in the past year. And while that does not sound like a lot, during a time like this, that's actually incredibly significant. And what we do is we start with veterans, we learn about our system, and then we start moving to other populations like maybe youth or families or those that are chronically homeless, things like that. Okay, so what has this done so far? We've been able to decrease veteran homelessness in 15%. We're getting a much better understanding of homelessness overall. I don't know if you can read the sign behind me, but it says we can't solve what we don't understand. And in all transparency, we've never been able to understand homelessness. And we have to know right now at this moment what we need in order to be able to solve for an issue. We also want to make data-driven decisions. We want to build more equitable responses, identify what resources we need. I think a lot of you have probably seen the governor yesterday announced $200 million in funding. We have ARPA funding coming in. Where do we put those resources to make the largest impact? And then how do we coordinate too? So it's not up to Aurora to build an entire response. They don't need to build everything. If we work together as a region, we all can kind of take a piece of that and work together and collectively to build a larger regional response and not have to all reinvent the wheel. Okay, and I think that was it. I'm going to stop there for questions and stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Reif. Does anyone have any questions? Brad does. Go ahead, Brad.
Dr. Wright, thank you for your presentation. I'm really excited to kind of see this initiative take root. I guess my question for you is, I have kind of gone on my own personal research journey of how do you solve homelessness in the Denver metro region. And I was struck recently, your stat brought up a book that I'm currently reading called, I think it's called Homelessness is a Housing Problem. And it, broadly oversimplifying what I've read so far, but one of the main issues with persistent, unhoused and homelessness is the relative unaffordability of housing in a region. And that's a really tough thing to try to tackle, right? So And obviously it's not just you all, but I'm curious if you can, I know you're starting the right way, right? With trying to understand the problem and collect a lot of great data. Do you have a sense though of maybe besides making sure there is more permanent housing and housing availability for folks, affordable housing, what sort of strategies have worked in some of those other communities that this organization has, in your words, sort of functionally ended homelessness?
Oh, that's a big question, Brad. A good one though. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we definitely need real-time data because to your point, homelessness ends in a home, right? Like we can't, you have to be in a home. Like that's the whole point. And the reality is we don't need just more affordable housing. We need more extremely low income housing. We need more pathways to home ownership. That's the other thing. Like if we want to address the income gap in this country and the wealth gap, we need pathways to home ownership. We need more inpatient hospital beds. Do you know how many seniors I see coming out of the hospital and going into homelessness because we don't have any sort of respite care for people experiencing homelessness? So there is a broad spectrum of things that have to be created in order for us to address the needs of those experiencing homelessness. And in order to be able to understand what that need is, we have to first understand the actual population. And we're doing that. We're not waiting for one before the other one happens, right? Like we know we're going to need X, Y, Z. Let's work on that now. And how many units of that are we going to need? That's the question. And how do we project forward? And like how many service dollars do we need to get people, treatment if they need it, or mental health services if they need it, or like I said, home health aides, things like that. And also, how do we help people age in place? One of the largest populations of people experiencing homelessness that's expanding quickly is the aging population, because they're renters on fixed incomes, and when rents are sent up, like they have no place to go. And so I think it's a really multifaceted approach. I hope I answered that really great question that you asked, Brad.
And in record time too, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I would, just as a follow-up request, love if you could maybe drop your contact info in the chat or something, because I'd love to follow up. So thank you.
Happy to do that. Thanks, Brad.
Hey, Mark, see your hand up as well.
Yep, thanks. Thanks for being here and for doing this presentation. There was a neighborhood social media discussion about these issues recently because of, I think, an encampment that was probably in the Sand Creek Greenway or something like that. And honestly, I didn't really know what to respond because I'm definitely of the opinion, or I believe it's true, that just sending in the police to clear out homelessness doesn't really do anything because it just pushes them somewhere else. But it didn't seem like anybody knew what else to suggest. And I would ask for you, like, do you have any, like fact sheets or anything like that we can refer to be able to say, no, here's what actually does help and whatnot. And my follow-up question, which is not really a follow-up question, this is a second question, but I'll call that anyways. What based on what the initial data you've seen, like how long at this rate would it take us to, eliminate homelessness in our areas?
Yeah, if we go at this rate, we'll never do it, Mark. Like that's like, I'm just going to be honest, like that we have to do something different. We have to. And like part of that, like, I'm going to guess some of you work in business. Would you go to a community and open a store, but do no market research ever about who your clients might be? Would you, we just wouldn't do that right in the private sector, but that's what we've been doing in homelessness for a long time now. It's just being like, well, let's see what sticks, and kind of, and like I think we have great people doing good work, and I'm part of that. And we all have to work together, because if we keep doing this in silos and don't get together to build this coordinated response, it's just, we're going to keep doing the same thing over and over. And then the other, encampments. So here's what I will tell you. The challenge with, I get it. The reality is no one wants anyone sleeping outdoors, right? No matter your reasons. Like none of us wants to see an encampment. And we may have very different reasons why. There's also a lot of reasons why people don't go to shelter. And in the report, there's a whole section on that, just around some of the barriers to shelter. And again, we have some amazing shelter providers, but shelter isn't for everyone. And what we really need to be doing, and this isn't an immediate answer, I just want to say, like, there's no, in my opinion, great answer for like looking at encampment, what do we do? I think bringing in sanitation. I think doing sweeps is challenging. Sweeps do just kind of push people around. And if they're working with an outreach worker, one of the challenges we find is they may be up for housing. They may have a voucher, but once they're swept, we can't find them again to be able to actually connect them to the housing resource. And that's one of the challenges with sweeps. What we have to do is be able to move people through our system to stability faster so that we can get more people through. Because that's what's happening right now. It's getting clogged up, and then it just kind of is spreading. And we have to be able to get people into housing and get them stabilized so that we can get people off the streets and work to directly house people from outdoors to actual stability. Does that make sense, Mark?
Yeah, I guess your first comment left me a little sad. So I guess my follow-up to that would be like, well, what can we do differently to make it so that we're actually on a path then to, eliminate this? Like, it sounds like there's been a lot of money thrown at it. Is that just not going in the right way because we don't know where it needs to go yet? Or is it just like a drop in the bucket for what's needed?
I think it's a drop in the bucket. I'm going to be honest with you, like just from, especially with COVID, we had really great funding when it first started. Like the number of households we prevented from becoming unhoused was astronomical because of the funding that's put in. I do think we haven't, like if you look at our funding from the federal resources, it's pretty much stagnated, which really is regress, right? It's less and less each year because of inflation and rising rental costs. We need more investment. I think recently, because of COVID, we've seen that, but we need these sustained levels of funding if we're going to be able to do anything about this, like significantly. And yes, we need to get better at making sure it's going to evidence-based practices that are leading to outcomes.
I have a couple questions. Sorry, I just blanked on what the first one was. Does anybody else have a question while I get my thought together? Oh, I know there was. Never mind. Forgive me. One of the things I really appreciate about what you're saying is that there's not a blanket one-size-fits-all solution to this, and you described these 9 regions. What region of the 9 that you identified would Central Park be in? And is that a plan that we could take a look at to see what you're recommending or prescribing in our particular region?
Yeah, so Central Park should be.
I think there was a City of Denver one, right?
Yeah, so Denver, yeah, so it's City of Denver. They just released a plan. They have a very comprehensive plan. I have to tell you, Denver is like, they are working hard and are very much moving in the right direction. And so there is a plan. I think there's a lot of ways that, organizations like yours can support it. I think one of the things I would say is just like being open to this conversation this evening, I think is an amazing first step. The fact that you as a community invited someone like me to come in and actually talk about this issue, I think speaks volumes and is a really good first step, just being open to the actual, what the data shows us and what the reality is of the situation is really helpful.
Well, yeah, thanks for that. And thanks to our DEI committee, who are the ones that initiated this meeting. But it is something that's important to this organization. And the other question that I want to ask is, how can, as a community, as residents, what are some organizations that we might connect with? What are some activities that we might undertake that can be a part of the solution? Safe outdoor spaces is one that's gotten a lot of attention lately, that we're familiarizing ourselves with that. Are there other opportunities at the community level for us to get involved?
Yeah, and I just want to point out, Joey, thanks for saying that. Joey's actually on our board of directors. Joey Wylett is here tonight. And I think part of your RNO is actually in the Aurora plan as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay. What can you do? The biggest thing that I would ask you to consider is being supportive of allowing affordable housing, safe outdoor spaces, actual solutions in our communities, and educating yourself on the reality and not hearing the narrative on those issues, but really understanding. I think honestly, that's one of the biggest things, is to kind of work to change, you know, the NIMBY, not in my backyard, to YIMBY, which is yes in my backyard. But you know, where, because everyone wants affordable housing, they want solutions, but like we need places to build them. So
Carol put her hand up. Do you have a question?
I do. Where do we start with educating the general population, with educating our neighborhoods as to who the homeless are? I do like the sign that you have behind you, and everybody I'm sure understands the image that so many people hold of who is homeless. And the notion, I mean, when you think about it, it's like people don't grow up saying, gee, when I get to be older, I want to be homeless. Yeah. So, but understanding how this happens and then the conditions that perpetuate it. But again, back to who the homeless are: children of families who are homeless, foster kids who age out of the foster system, and have had no preparation, no support. And then you just brought up the aging population, and no care for people who come out of, you know, being in some sort of rehab situation, but then what do they do? So the reality of who the homeless are, how do we get that word out?
You know, Carol, I would really encourage you. This is like, first of all, thank you for saying that, because I do want to point out that for every one person you see outdoor, who most of us, that's what we visualize when we think of people experiencing homelessness, there are 3 people that you don't see. Carol, and to your point, they tend to be aging, older adults, they tend to be families, they tend to be young people, people who are more of the hidden homeless because it may not be as safe for them outdoors, right? And so I honestly, if you have Nextdoor, take pictures of this, some of the reports, that the graphics, the report we put out has amazing graphics. Nothing made my heart happier than when I logged into my Nextdoor app a couple of years ago and saw one of my neighbors post a picture from the State of Homelessness report in response to like some of the things that their neighbors were saying. You all being advocates and just trying to educate each other is honestly one of the biggest things that you can do. I am not being self-promoting because all proceeds from the book go to a national organization, but a co-author and I actually wrote a book. It's called Journeys Out of Homelessness, The Voices of Lived Experience. And it's 9 people who share their experiences of homelessness and how they got there and why, and then the policy implications. And Carol, to your point, a lot of them are aging out of foster care or they send themselves out. And in Colorado, you can't send yourself back in once you've signed yourself out. It's things like that that we need to change. And foster care is a direct pipeline to homelessness. But I think we need to understand that these are people that we're talking about, people with stories, with families, with brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. And as you said, they didn't get up saying, this is what I want to do today, or this is what I want to do with my life. And I think we've really, in this country, gotten to this point where we've dehumanized the issue. And we need to make it feel like, you know, we're talking about people again.
Mark, do you have another question?
Yeah, I have 2 quick follow-ups. One is, can you put the link to that study in there so we can find the pictures that we need to post to social media? Yeah. The second one is the 3 complaints or concerns that I usually hear about the encampments is crime, drugs, and trash. And I wasn't sure if it's reasonable and accurate to say that safe outdoor spaces address those 3 issues or not. And if I could, you know, like, because I'm trying to figure out when we have this dialogue with people, and social media is unfortunately the worst way to have a dialogue. Is there anything that we can reasonably and accurately say that will dissuade them of some of these beliefs that, you know, having a homeless encampment of a safe outdoor space version is somehow inviting crime, drugs, and trash into the area versus the opposite?
Oh, interesting. So are people saying that having an SOS would create crime, drugs, and
that's their fear, right?
Interesting.
Is that they're potentially inviting what they see at these encampments being and saying, bring that to our neighborhood.
You know what I would really encourage you all to do is set up a tour of one of the SOSs. I honestly would just like.
Carol's already doing that.
Carol's on.
I'm laughing.
Yeah.
It's in the works. It's in the works.
Good. It takes
I agree, Jamie.
Post it all over social and be like, my husband works at them. And so like, it's interesting. We have a lot of great conversations at home over dinner, as you can imagine, but like, it is a very different space, right? Because there are, and the difference is that people are getting the support they need and they're on a pathway to housing, you know, they're getting the services, they're working like with people like my husband to get access to Medicaid and benefits and all of that. And like, that's a lot harder to do when you're staying just like in an encampment that's not a safe outdoor space. It's also a lot safer for the people that are living there. So yeah, does that answer your question? Mark, I think it was you that asked the original question.
Yeah, I mean, my question is essentially like, am I being honest if I say sending people to safe outdoor spaces is actually safer for our community than relying on the, you know, clear the encampments and hope that they don't move back approach?
Oh, yeah, it's like, I mean, it's kind of like playing whack-a-mole when we do that, because it's just like, it really isn't. That it is responding to homelessness, that is not managing or solving for homelessness. And safe outdoor spaces are a step for solving for homelessness. And Mark, let me see if I can track down like a study or two that talk about safe outdoor spaces.
Yeah, I love a good study. Thank you.
I do too. I love a good study.
And Dr. if you have my contact information as well as Shalice's for forwarding those studies and any other resources that you want to get out to the community, we're happy to circulate those. We are quite a bit over time, but I really don't mind because this is an important topic, and I hope you hear our genuine interest and enthusiasm in this topic, Dr. Wright, and we're really grateful for your time. Before we move on to our board hour, or excuse me, our public comment period, are there any final questions or comments for Dr. Wright? If not, thank you again for joining us. It's very much appreciated. Please do send us any studies or anything that you think will help us to educate our community on this topic. We'd love to start getting that information out there.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for your questions and your actual interest in this dialogue tonight. I really appreciate it. It's always great to show up to a group that has questions and we have some open dialogue. And I just really, I appreciate it. I love talking to groups like this. So
I don't know if you know CPUN particularly well, but I can assure you, you'll be hearing from us again.
Great. And is it okay if I stick around for just a second to drop some things in the chat?
Please. For anyone that's on the call, our board meetings are open to the public, so everyone's more than welcome to stay on the line.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Like I said, we are quite a bit over. I think all for a good cause. Why don't we carry straight on into our public comment period? Does anyone have a public comment they would like to make?
No,
Mark,
Jeff,
you can share. Oh, I'm sorry, Joey, go ahead.
Hey, I'm sorry, Jeff, this is my first meeting to attend, so I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but I just wanted to follow up on Jamie's comment that I'm working with homelessness in the Aurora Public School District. So if there are any concerns that specifically pertain to, students or families in the Aurora area that are attending Aurora Public Schools, and there's anything we can help with there, like Jamie said, there's a lot of pandemic relief resources available through the school district. But we have a great challenge of identifying those families that need those supports and making contact with them. So I just wanted to extend that at the end of Jamie's conversation, that if there are any families that you're aware of that are in the Aurora area that we could help, that have school-aged children, I'll put my contact information in the chat as well, so that we can communicate about them.
Great, thank you very much. All right, Mark, do you mind sharing your screen again and we can move on to the board hour?
I'm trying to. Is it there yet?
It's getting there. Wait.
Oh,
there we go. Any other public comment? I don't think I heard anything. Okay, we'll go on to the board meeting. Mark, you can advance it one more slide. We'll do committee updates first. Just to be sensitive of the time here, unless there's something particularly pressing, let's try to move through the committee updates fairly quickly. The only thing I'll just say for communication and outreach is that last month we finally started our welcome bag distribution program with the CPBA. I want to thank Mark and his son and Jeff Ederer and others that sort of did the initial deployment of those welcome bags, which include our CPUN postcard, which was designed by Mandel. We'll be doing those on a monthly basis. Does any other committee have something that they want to take a few minutes to talk about that the board at large can assist with? Okay, are we sure? I don't mean to be too impatient.
I know where to find you all.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, so the main thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is our May forum. What you see here is a proposed agenda. It's pretty packed. So two things. One, I want to make sure that I've hit the right things here in the eyes of the board. And two, is there anywhere where maybe if we were trying to create a little extra space that we could find a different venue than this forum for that particular topic? Some of the things are pretty well fixed. You know, the CPUN board business, our slate, year in review, that's stuff we're going to do. The items with a star next to it are where I have an open invitation and conversation going. So and I proceeded with those because it's been fairly standard practice over the years to invite those and make just good sense to continue to do so. But if I could give everyone just a second here to take a look at the agenda. Does anyone have any sort of questions or observations about it at first glance? I'll just add that where this one differs from a regular month board meeting is that we try to prioritize topics where there tends to be longer cycles of change. You know, development updates on a monthly basis don't make a ton of sense, for example, but annually they definitely do.
Jeff, I was just wondering how many speakers are going to speak in the fire mitigation 20 minutes?
Yeah, that's a great one. So the four are the prospective voices on that, Jeff, where there's no sort of sub bullets. It would just be one person speaking. Fire mitigation, just because it's been such a concern since the fires in Boulder County there, is a topic that I thought this might be a good venue to address. But as I looked into who would be important to hear speak on that issue for this community, there's just a lot of different audiences. You heard Jack mention the Denver Fire Department is going to come speak. They're unable to attend this meeting, so Jack would just provide a summary of what they had to say about it. But a lot of the decisions around fire mitigation tactics or the need for them appear to come from Denver Parks and Rec with respect to Sand Creek Greenway and West Creek. So Arsenal is another one that's for obvious reasons, and then I know the MCA is working on this as well, as you heard Jack mention. So all four are potentially legitimate speakers on this topic.
I mean, it almost sounds like MCA and the summary are going to be maybe one presentation.
Well, I was thinking the MCA usually has their regular updates that don't have anything to do with fire mitigation.
No, I meant under fire mitigation now.
Oh,
I'm just trying to think if you've got four speakers.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's going to run over.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
No problem. I was going to say the main thing I would note is I think there's going to be plenty of questions on the development update, mostly like, you know, why a Chili's and not a locally owned coffee shop kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure if we needed 20 minutes for our stuff, and because 20 minutes seemed short for them. I know there's less development now, but if you've got Tyler Carlson coming, you know, there's That just doesn't feel like enough time. And I was just thinking maybe we can at least shift over 5 minutes there, or if somebody doesn't want their time. The other is you've got Esserman's name spelled wrong.
I don't. If you refresh your slide, I don't know why.
How do I refresh my slide? I just got it
I don't
Esserman.
know.
I don't know how to do that while I'm sharing.
When I'm looking at it, let's see what happens.
Weird.
Anyway, but back to your question, Jeff. Diane's not still on, is she? The one that seems to have the least amount of influence on this is the MCA. And perhaps if we're looking to streamline this a bit further, that they might be the ones to sort of pass it on to the powers that be with Denver Parks and Rec and otherwise.
Well, Jeff, I'll say that, the MCA has 1,400 acres of open space. So we are, next to Denver Parks and Recreation and Brookfield Properties. We are the third largest property owner. Of course, we don't own the land. The Park Creek Metropolitan District owns the land, but we operated on their behalf. And the two of the three fires that we've seen burn on property that is the Park Creek districts. There is debate, internal debate about whether or not that land should get handed over to the city or whether it's being kept by us. I think all of a sudden we decided we wanted to get rid of it for, some obvious reasons. But I know that is one of the reasons why we will be talking about, we'll be touching on that tomorrow with an hour-long presentation from the fire chief, because we are a large landowner manager here in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So the question is, Jack, are you going to do? I mean, maybe you guys haven't decided yet, but if MCA is going to speak, could the MCA speak and then do the summary of the DFD presentation all sort of in one talk rather than two speakers? It's just the more speakers, it seems like the less likely we are to fit it in 20 minutes.
And my thought there was that, I've been working on this for the MCA. I was going to prepare a presentation based on, for all neighborhood, not entity specific, but kind of, hey, in Central Park, here's what's going on. Here are the players. Here's what we're cooking on. I'm happy to also, right? I don't need to give a presentation. I offered because the fire chief couldn't make, he couldn't make the May date work. So, if we're looking for things to cut, that would be my recommendation, because we'll already be getting into that tomorrow.
Jack, can you send me a?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand, Jack, what you're suggesting we cut.
I think that we are, if you're looking for things to remove, I would take out the fire mitigation section there from the agenda
entirely.
Other forums, and if that's something you're looking to remove, I know we're doing that work elsewhere. We're going to have a health and safety committee meeting dedicated to that. So if you're looking for things to remove, I think that topic is being covered in multiple other forums. So that could be something that we took off.
Entirely. Yeah.
Jack, is that meeting tomorrow going to be recorded? And if so, can we get a link to send to the community?
Sure. It is not recorded. It's MCA policy that our delegate meetings aren't recorded. And that's dates back to 2002. So that's a policy that we don't record them. That unfortunately, that's just not something we do.
Is your presentation shareable?
I can ask the fire chief for his presentation. Yes.
Thanks.
I would say keep the fire mitigation in there. Does DPD and DeHerndon's office need to be part of this, because it is a different forum? Just something to think about.
Yeah. I mean, I think.
Especially because fire mitigation is not being recorded. It's so helpful when things are recorded and then we get to share them on the website. It's just like our meetings, our CPUN meetings, and whether it's
the
board meetings or the committee meetings.
I agree with you, Carol. The world's changed a lot since 2002. Maybe we should revise policies set back then.
That's just very valuable information, and it could be shared, and it would be lovely. If that's the policy, I understand it. But then I don't believe it should be removed from the agenda.
Well, you know, policies can be changed. I'm just not the one that changes those. So I think that's a
Yes.
separate conversation to have. And, you know, remember, we're used, the MCA is used to having these meetings in person once a month where we get a small group of people together. There would never be more than 6 people in the room, and they would write. So that's just not what the custom was. And obviously the world has changed. But I can't record tomorrow's meeting. It's just not allowed.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's
So
fine.
Jack, how many people are you expecting tomorrow?
Well, I expect that I will get my delegates, and if more than that show up, that'll be even better.
Yeah, I'm in favor of keeping the fire mitigation, just because I think we might have a big audience, at least we hope so. And this seems like the type of topic that, you know,
Yeah.
not to trivialize marketing or whatever, but it might bring people in. They might be interested in this topic. I'm just wondering how we fit it into 20 minutes.
So I could ask, so the Denver Fire Department, right? The fire chief himself is coming, and he wants an hour to give a presentation. They said they could be, I can go back to them. I can ask if they can give me a 20-minute presentation, and the chief himself isn't available, but I have to think there's a deputy chief or someone that, you know, hopefully they're not just leaving the city without anybody in charge of the fire department. So I could reach back out and have that conversation.
Jack, have you talked to anybody from Denver Parks and Rec or Rocky Mountain Arsenal on this, or has the MCA?
I have Denver Parks and Rec doesn't believe there is a fire problem in the community.
Right.
And Rocky Mountain Arsenal is has a strong fire mitigation program, and they have written extensively about it in some publications throughout the city, and most recently in the Front Porch there was talk about what they do. We could certainly invite them as well. Again, if we only have 20 minutes, I think any agency that we invite will want 20 minutes. So I don't think we can do more than one agency in a 20-minute period. So if you say, I want the Arsenal to come and talk, I can have my contact at the Arsenal, send someone to talk. I can go back to the fire department, ask them to come to talk. My belief would be the fire department is where to talk about fire mitigation, because, you know, they're the fire department. But again, what do I know?
Well, but I think there's policies, like you said, Denver Parks and Rec doesn't believe that there's a need, right? And fire department responds reactively to generalize versus more proactive policies. I agree that we need to streamline this somehow, because 4 speakers, that's just not going to happen with question and answers. So I want maybe let's think about how
Jeff, Jeff, let's you and I talk. But we don't need to spend more time on it now.
Okay. The 2 that I saw on there, and they're just 5 minutes, it wouldn't save a ton of time, would be the CPBA and the foundation. They're just 5-minute blocks, and they're in some ways sort of a courtesy to organizations that we partner and collaborate with, but I'm not sure that the community has the kind of urgency on those 2 organizations that it might for DPD, for example. I appreciate that DPD provides a monthly update, but I'm of the mind, like Jeff said, that we'll have a larger audience for this one, and that police issues are going to be ones that those in attendance are going to be more eager with questions for. Okay. Is Jeff Ederer on the call? Can he tell me if he's offended?
Yeah, I'm not offended. I appreciate the thought. I don't think, considering the time, we need to do it. Maybe some mention of sponsorships that Mark and Jeff and I have been in somewhere along the way would be great, though.
Yeah.
Jeff, first of all, the gift here is that we've got it in front of us and we have some time and we can take a look at it and let it sit a little bit and we can talk about it.
We can. We do need to get invitations out though. And
I got you.
Yeah, and these things can take some time. I agree. I think the other topic that I wanted, or the other category that might be worth a little discussion here and now is education. And Carol, you can tell me, we started this conversation a bit earlier. We've always tried to invite Northfield High School as a way to support their development and roots in the community. Scott Esserman, as a district board member, was the other one that I've reached out to. Do you see a need to differ from that, Carol, in any way?
I think it depends on what you want. What's the point? I'm not saying this to be rude. It's just how I think. It's sort of like you always have to think about what's the point of what you're asking. So what is it that we want to know? What does the community need to know or want to know, or both? And then Mr. Esserman and whoever speaks on behalf of Northfield High School will know that ahead of time, and they can have their remarks prepared, and we can say, you have 5 minutes to blah, blah. And that is actually very helpful for people.
Oh, sure. So the logic here, Carol, is a district perspective in the form of Esserman, and the high school being a more hyper-local perspective, specifically around enrollment, shared campus, the concerns that residents have as Northfield becomes the natural feeder for their kids.
Well, and that came up with the Q&A with Director Quattlebaum, and that was not. There were just a lot of things hanging, and that's why I said in the first hour, when we meet again, the education committee meets again, we have to go back and look at what was said, and then what is it that we want to know? What's the follow-up with this? So these things are sort of working together right now, Jeff, if that makes sense, in terms of what the education committee is trying to find out and share with the community, and then what you're proposing here with the May Forum.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost like we're doing two things. One, we're talking about presentations, and it seems like some of our bullets are lend themselves well to presentations, like the development update. But really, with say fire mitigation and education, potentially, what we're really wanting is to offer an opportunity for residents to ask questions and get information. So, I mean, I don't know what the answer to this is. If we're going to do like Q&A and we just have a panel of people for 20 minutes, you don't think that would work because people wouldn't ask questions?
I think people will ask. So Jeff Horsfall, here's what I'd say. I think this is a very normal forum agenda. I think it was, well put together and squeezed together. What I would suggest is that one thing has changed a little bit in the last year or two, which is our committees are doing a lot more. So I will give the education committee specific props to saying, we had our, a school board member go to an education committee meeting. That's pretty awesome. I don't remember if we've ever done that before. We should have, but like maybe this is the chance to reduce what we do at the forum and rely on the committees a little bit more because they're taking on more on it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I would lean toward. And then same with health and safety and fire mitigation. Like if they're going to already have something about it, maybe mention that and try to encourage people to go to it. But maybe we don't have to have quite as long of a forum. Because, attendance dips anyways,
Because what?
As it goes on. It tends to fall off as it goes on. Like 2 hours is just a lot for any of the parents or families or whatever. So,
well, yeah, I think, in my time on the board, the annual forum tends to get more of a push from us to get attendance. And then we get more people there who don't normally participate in the committee stuff. So I just worry a little bit about, while that's absolutely true that the committees are doing more, that for potentially for a decent chunk of people who attend this, they'll be in the dark on that work.
Well, but maybe that's part of the year in review. Like each of the committees does a 2-minute, here's what we covered and here's what's coming up.
Yeah.
There's a thought.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking in the year in review. Was every committee gets to say, here are 2 things that we did that we're really proud of, and here's what we've got planned for the year ahead or something.
I like that. And that may then mean that we don't do Esserman and Northfield, because that will be, yeah, thank you, Mark.
I mean, honestly, DPS stuff has always been hard to fit into, the bigger agenda because it's always a longer meeting. And, so yeah, I'll revise my original comment about shortening board business, and maybe we do a longer year in review to highlight our committees a little bit more and the work that we've been doing on things so that people know more about what's coming up. And then, take some of those pieces off. Now, I'd like having some sort of mention of fire mitigation, but if health and safety does that as their update, that sounds great.
I think the other reason that I kind of stick to this is on the assumption that we get more attendees. The education, those education guests, for example, the questions hit a little different when it's residents, and I think residents like the opportunity to interact with and engage with these people directly. And so again, it's just my arguments sort of tend to hinge on attendance, but I do worry a little bit about not giving people the opportunity to do that.
I mean, I think attendance usually is driven by the development update personally, but
yeah.
And that's why I always worry when it gets cut into a short time block, is I'm like, people want to know when their locally owned coffee shop is opening, or when Whole Foods is coming. And they're hoping to hear that, and then they want to ask why not if it isn't.
I think people might come for fire mitigation too, to be honest. I think that's on people's minds, especially.
I agree with you, Jeff.
You got to specify a Jeff here.
Jeff Aaron.
We're all,
for all I know, your cat's named Jeff too. So
well, the cat is right here.
All the Jeffs are always in agreement. That's something that we work out before the meeting.
Oh yeah.
So what I'll do to start,
what
I'll definitely do to start is I'm going to take the foundation and the CPBA out. I'm going to talk to Jack about how a brainstorm a way that we might make the fire mitigation topic feasible in that kind of timeline. And then I'll sort of build out a little bit more on the CPUN board business to give committees a little extra time to talk about what they've done. We can look at the education thing, Carol, and figure out what the best use of that slot is, whether it's preserving it in some form or fashion or deferring it to another venue. We can decide, we can work on that together.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody? Does that feel like a good enough kind of streamlining of this for now?
Yeah. The one question I still had though is you got SDC on there, and I wasn't sure if we're going to have any mention of us taking over some of the roles of the CAB there.
Yeah, that was going to be part of the year in review. I haven't reached out to them proactively yet. I just thought it might be an entity to consider, but we don't have to necessarily include them here.
Yeah, or just the CAB, leadership, to give them one last chance to be like, here's what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Okay. If anyone has any thoughts about this, I saw people taking pictures of this slide. I'm happy to send the slides around too, so you can just take a look yourself. But please let me know if you have any thoughts about it. So just to follow up on a couple things, open board seats, as I mentioned, all of our slate will be returning board members. However, we have had a little bit of interest from people who are interested in joining the board after the May forum and when our new board year begins. One of those people is with us tonight. I hope she's still with us and has stuck it out. Yes, she has. Courtney Liss is with us. Hi, Courtney. It's nice to talk with you. Again. Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I've just been listening. Looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, Courtney and I had a good conversation, a few weeks ago about about what it means to join the board. And I invited her to come to the meeting so she could see a meeting in practice here. And Courtney, do you want to just take a minute to introduce yourself and maybe ask any questions or anything like that you might have?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Courtney Liss. I've lived in the neighborhood for going on 12 years, moved here in 2011. And as I mentioned to Jeff, I've worked really closely with a lot of key stakeholders in the community in that time. On the for-profit side, I do public relations and worked closely with the master developer, Brookfield Forest City, over the years. And now that the community is sort of no longer in need of public relations efforts, I'm excited to have the opportunity to work on a more community-oriented side and sort of put some of that personal experience to use. I'm really passionate about living here. I have 3 kids in the schools, plan to be here for a very long time and look forward to, being able to spend some concerted time and effort on, working towards improving the community where I see it needing it and, working with all of you. I think I've really been impressed with the work you've done over the years and have followed a lot of that work. So look forward to being able to contribute as I can. Let me know if you have any questions about my background. Happy to answer any questions.
So Courtney, this is Mark Maringer. I'll ask my standard question of anybody who's thinking about joining the board. What committees interest you and why?
So I think my natural inclination, just based on my professional experience, would be, things around, events promotion, community, that sort of thing. But I will also say that, I do a lot, and of course, as a mother of three different schools, education is important to me. And I feel like just having a pulse on kind of what's going on in the community right now, safety and security are of really critical importance, I think, to the community at large. Like when I was looking at your last slide in the community forum, I actually think that the DPD update is going to be what drives the attendance to that forum meeting. I think people are really genuinely concerned about the rise in crime and some of the issues around education and the innovation, the EL limitations. I think those are the things that people are sort of talking about. And so I sort of want to be a touchstone to be able to answer questions and be a part of some of those broader conversations and topics. I don't know if that answered your question.
About as perfectly as you could. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Courtney? If not, she's sent a letter of interest that I'll share with the board. Courtney, just so you know, we'll kind of press pause on this for May.
Okay.
And that because we've got the annual forum, and as you just heard us describing, and then we'll kind of pick things back up again after that, which is again May 17th. And so the next board meeting, and again, encourage you to attend that, will be June, third Tuesday in June. I'll have to get my calendar out to see what that is exactly, but I'll
That
make
sounds
sure.
great.
21st.
June 21st. Thanks, Mark.
Perfect. Thank you so
I'll make
much.
sure that- yeah, no, thank you. And thanks for your interest in the board. To the rest of the board, the May forum is a little bit of a pause, and then we kick off our new board year in June. And so I do think it's worth everybody just taking a little bit of time in advance to kind of think about your role on the board and how you want to spend your time in the 2022-2023 year. What committees you might want to switch up, what kind of commitment you're able to make. I just want to say for my part that I do intend to run for president again. But I also want to make clear that my plan is only to do so for another year. So if you're on the board and you're thinking about your future with the board and the presidency might open up in a year, and that's something you want to kind of factor into your thinking, I think it's only fair that you know that now. If it means that you're chomping at the bit and want to run this year, I'd welcome that too. But I did just want to make sure that everybody knew what my plans were, so that you can adjust any plans you might have accordingly. Yeah, Mark.
And I'll add on. I am always open to somebody else taking over the role of secretary. Please do not hesitate to step up for the role of secretary. I can show you all the stuff I do, and I will continue to help with most of it. But if you want to be secretary, please don't hesitate to let me know.
What are you trying to say, Mark?
That I'm only doing it because nobody else would?
Hey, Mark, what if I told you I wanted to be the secretary?
Oh, I'd buy you a burrito and a beer.
I'm only
so there's
half
a prize there. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So yeah, sounds good.
You two need to have lunch, it sounds like.
Yeah, my treat, obviously. You know where to find me.
I know where to find all you people.
All right. Any other board stuff that anybody wants to talk about?
I have one minor thing from one minor thing and one major thing from fundraising standpoint. One is the fundraising committee. We've been talking about taking our prime view spots and splitting them so we can potentially have two of them. One of them, instead of just having one slot for 250, we would have one slot for 150 that goes on top and a slot just below that for 100. Just because we're hoping the lower prices will make it a little easier to squeeze some people in there or to get more people interested. But to me, more important is please don't forget next week, Wednesday, is our first Chipotle night in a long time. So, come hungry and, order a lot of food. And don't be shy about getting a buffet to keep it home like I'm going to.
What's the time of that, Mark, on Wednesday?
4 to 8. So anytime between 4 and 8, just make sure to bring our code or a screenshot or whatever of the flyer or a printout of the flyer. And it'll be in our Monday email.
Right.
So
okay.
Make sure to read our email. Because as you can see from the treasurer's report, we haven't quite raised everything we need.
A quick fact check on the welcome bags. Jeff had to correct me. It's every other month, not every month. So the next one won't be until May. A quick question for the DEI committee. I got Randall's email earlier today about he's going to put together a summary proposal for the training initiative that he sent the recording for, and that we talk about it at the next board meeting. We do have just a minute here. Do you want to talk about that in any way here, or should we just wait until Mandel and Shalise are back and able to represent that particular project? Not sure who's here on the DEI committee. I see Liz and Brooke.
I would say that since Mandel has headed that up, I think we should wait for them to be available to discuss it.
That's fine. Well, we still ended up 5 minutes early, despite starting the board meeting late.
Jeff for president for life.
Yeah, no, not for life. All right. And if anybody does have questions about the presidency or anything like that, you're more than welcome to reach out to me.
Or secretary.
Do we have to do? I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I just said or secretary. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just wondering, do we need to show up a little early for setup or anything at the forum?
Yeah, probably. That's a really good question. I don't know yet. I'm working with Dana at the MCA, and they've got a really cool AV system set up in there. And I'm going to go down early and make sure that I know how everything works and that kind of stuff. And once I get more details from her, I'll probably email the board and let you know how early to come and all that kind of stuff, what to bring. Thanks for asking that, Jeff. I'm glad you thought of that.
No, sounds good.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Going once, twice, 3 times. All good? All right. Well, have a good evening, everyone. Take care.